Imagine a world with no power plants, no wires, no batteries as we know them today. Now imagine a small jar filled with nothing but salt, water, and a few pieces of charcoal, quietly producing something that looks a lot like electricity. Sounds impossible, right? But back in the 1800s, this strange idea was very real, and it left scientists both fascinated and confused. Today, we're going to open up this old mystery and walk through it step by step in a way that's simple, clear, and honestly, a little bit eerie. Before we go further, if you enjoy stories about forgotten inventions and strange science from the past, hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is all about digging into the quiet, overlooked chapters of history, the kind that never make it into textbooks. So let's get into it. Picture a small town in the late 1800s. Life moves slowly. There's no glowing light bulbs on every street corner, no humming refrigerators, no easy switch you flip to bring a room to life. Electricity, at this point in history, is still a mystery even to the smartest minds in the world. People have heard of it. They've seen demonstrations. But it's rare, expensive, and hard to produce reliably. And yet, in workshops and basements scattered across Europe and America, curious tinkerers are experimenting with something surprisingly simple. Salt, water, metal, and charcoal. Now, why charcoal? At first glance, it seems like an odd choice. Charcoal is just burnt wood, right? Something you'd use to grill food or draw a sketch. But if you look closer, charcoal has a hidden property. It conducts electricity fairly well, especially when it's processed the right way. This isn't some wild guess from history. It's a basic fact of chemistry that people back then were only beginning to understand. Combine that conductive charcoal with a saltwater solution, add a metal like zinc, and you create the basic ingredients of what's called a simple electrochemical cell. Here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just theory. Simple batteries built from basic, everyday materials were actually being explored and used in real ways during the 1800s, especially for telegraph systems. Long before power grids existed, telegraph lines needed some way to send electrical signals across huge distances, sometimes hundreds of miles. And the source of that electricity? Often surprisingly humble battery cells, sometimes even involving earth, salt, and metal rods buried in the ground. These were sometimes called earth batteries, and they represent one of the strangest, least talked about chapters in the story of electricity. Think about that for a moment. While most people at the time still saw electricity as something almost magical, telegraph operators were quietly using the earth itself, combined with metal and moisture, to carry messages across entire countries. It wasn't clean, it wasn't efficient by today's standards, but it worked, and it worked because of the same basic principle behind our salt and charcoal setup. A chemical reaction between different materials creates a flow of electrons. That flow is what we call an electric current. Now let's slow down and really understand what's happening inside a setup like this. When you place two different conductive materials into a salty solution, something interesting happens at the atomic level. One material tends to lose electrons more easily than the other. This creates what's called a difference in electrical potential, basically a kind of imbalance. Electrons don't like imbalance. They want to move toward balance. So when you connect the two materials with a wire, or in this case, allow the reaction to happen through the salty water, those electrons start moving. And moving electrons, quite simply, is electricity. Charcoal plays a fascinating role here. Because of its porous structure, it has a huge surface area, much more than it looks like from the outside. That means more contact points for the chemical reaction to happen, which can help the whole process work more effectively. It's one of those quiet examples of nature already having the right structure for the job, waiting for humans to figure out how to use it. Now here's something that might surprise you. This isn't just an old-fashioned party trick or forgotten curiosity. Long before major electrical companies existed, ordinary people were experimenting with exactly these kinds of homemade power sources. Farmers, telegraph operators, hobby scientists. They were building crude but functional batteries using whatever they had on hand. Salt was cheap. Charcoal was everywhere, since almost every household burned wood for heat or cooking. And metal scraps weren't hard to find either. In a strange way, some of the earliest experiments with electricity weren't happening in fancy laboratories with expensive equipment. They were happening in barns, workshops, and backyards. This is what makes this story so compelling. It's not about some genius locked away in a secret lab with resources nobody else had. It's about ordinary curiosity, applied with simple materials, leading to something that would eventually reshape the entire world. The device we're talking about today isn't going to power your house or charge your phone. It won't replace modern batteries. But that's not really the point. The point is what it represents. A glimpse into how humans first began to understand and harness one of the most powerful forces in nature, using nothing more than dirt, salt, water, and burnt wood. And here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. If people in the 1800s could create a working electrical reaction using materials this basic, what does that tell us about how electricity actually works? It tells us that electricity isn't some rare, exotic thing that only exists inside factories and power plants. It's a natural process, built into the very structure of matter itself. Two different materials, a bit of moisture and the right conditions, and suddenly you have a flow of energy. That's genuinely wild when you think about it. As we go further into this story, we're going to explore how these early experiments eventually connected to bigger discoveries, how the idea of a battery without electricity isn't as contradictory as it sounds, and why this old dusty piece of science history still matters today. We'll also look at some of the very real limitations of setups like this, because as fascinating as they are, they're far from perfect, and understanding their weaknesses is just as important as understanding how they work. We're going to dig even deeper into exactly how this reaction was used in real historical situations, why it eventually faded into obscurity, and what modern science still owes to this strange little piece of 1800s ingenuity. Let's go back to that image of a telegraph line stretching across hundreds of miles of open land. It's easy to picture wires and poles, but the real puzzle back then wasn't the wire, it was the power. How do you keep sending signals across such huge distances without a power plant anywhere nearby? Engineers at the time needed something reliable, something that wouldn't run out quickly, and something that could be built using materials that were actually available in remote areas. That's where these earth and salt-based cells became so important. Some telegraph companies buried metal plates deep in moist ground, sometimes near riverbanks or areas with naturally salty soil. The ground itself became part of the circuit. It sounds almost unbelievable, but it worked well enough to keep messages flowing for years in some regions. Now, let's bring this back to our salt and charcoal setup, because it follows the exact same principle, just in a smaller, more controlled form. Picture a simple container. Inside, you have a piece of charcoal on one side and a piece of metal, often zinc, on the other. Between them sits a solution of salt water. This isn't some exotic chemical. It's the same salt you'd find in a kitchen dissolved in ordinary water. The moment these two different materials touch that solution, a slow, quiet reaction begins. It's not dramatic. There's no spark, no flash, nothing you'd see in a movie. But if you were to connect a small measuring device, you'd notice something happening. A small but measurable electrical current, generated purely through chemistry, without any wires plugged into a wall, without any modern battery cell, and without any moving parts. This is important to understand because a lot of people hear the phrase runs without electricity and assume it means the device magically creates energy from nothing. That's not what's happening here, and it's worth being honest about that. Energy isn't being created out of thin air. It's being converted. The chemical energy stored in the reaction between the metal, the charcoal, and the salt solution is being transformed into electrical energy. It's the same basic principle behind every battery ever made, from the earliest crude versions in the 1800s to the lithium batteries sitting inside your phone right now. The materials are different, the efficiency is wildly different, but the underlying idea has barely changed in almost 2 centuries. What makes the 1880s version so fascinating is just how accessible it was. You didn't need a factory. You didn't need imported materials. You didn't need any specialized training. If you had salt, water, a container, some charcoal, and a strip of metal, you had the basic ingredients for a working experiment. This is part of why so many amateur inventors and curious minds were drawn to this kind of experimentation during that era. Electricity was still mysterious, still exciting, still something that felt like it belonged to the future. And here was a way for ordinary people to touch that mystery with their own hands, using things they already had lying around the house or the barn. There's something almost poetic about that. In a time before electric grids, before power companies, before the modern conveniences we take for granted every single day, people were already finding ways to create small pockets of electrical energy using nothing more than nature's own materials. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't powerful. A setup like this couldn't light a room or run a machine, but it was proof of concept. It showed, in the simplest way possible, that electricity wasn't some rare gift reserved for scientists in white coats. It was a natural phenomenon, waiting to be unlocked by anyone patient enough to experiment. As the 1800s moved forward, scientific understanding of these reactions deepened. Researchers began to realize that different combinations of materials produced different results. Some metal and solution combinations created a stronger current. Others created a weaker but longer-lasting one. This period of trial and error, often done without any of the safety equipment or precise instruments we have today, laid the groundwork for the more advanced batteries that would come later. The zinc-carbon battery, which many people even today still recognize from old flashlights, owes a lot to this early experimentation. Charcoal and carbon, in various refined forms, kept showing up again and again in these early designs, precisely because of that same porous structure we talked about earlier, giving the chemical reaction more surface area to work with. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. Despite how promising these early cells were, they had serious limitations. The reaction inside a salt and charcoal setup isn't stable forever. Over time, the materials break down, the metal corrodes. The solution changes as the chemical reaction continues. Eventually, the whole thing stops producing a usable current. In a world without replaceable mass-manufactured battery parts, this meant these early power sources had a short, unpredictable lifespan. For something like a home experiment or a small demonstration, that was fine. But for something like a nationwide telegraph system, this created real challenges. Operators had to maintain, replace, and sometimes completely rebuild these battery setups on a regular basis, which was expensive and time-consuming. This is part of why, as the decades moved forward, the world eventually moved toward more advanced and reliable battery technology. The core idea never disappeared, but the materials and methods evolved. Engineers found ways to make the chemical reactions more consistent, more powerful, and longer lasting. Eventually, this path of experimentation would lead toward the battery technology we recognize today, the kind sitting inside remote controls, cars, laptops, and phones. It's strange to think that such advanced modern technology has roots stretching all the way back to a jar of salt water, a piece of metal, and a chunk of charcoal sitting quietly in some forgotten workshop over 100 years ago. And this raises another interesting question we're thinking about. If something this simple could produce real, measurable electrical energy, what other forgotten experiments from history might still hold value today? Science doesn't always move in a straight, obvious line. Sometimes, old, seemingly outdated ideas end up quietly influencing the technology of the future, long after most people have forgotten they ever existed. This particular story, the story of salt, charcoal, and quiet chemical power, is a perfect example of that pattern. It's easy to look at old inventions and assume they were primitive, clumsy, first attempts destined to be replaced. But in many cases, these early experiments weren't failures. They were foundations. They were the first careful steps toward understanding something that would eventually become one of the most important forces shaping modern life. As we move into the final part of this story, we're going to look at what actually happens if you try to build a version of this today, what modern science says about its real limitations and possibilities, and why understanding these old, simple designs might matter more than most people realize, even in a world filled with advanced lithium batteries and high-tech power sources. So let's imagine, just for a moment, that you decided to actually build one of these old-fashioned salt and charcoal cells today, using nothing but modern household materials. What would happen? First, you'd need a container, something simple like a small jar or cup. Then you'd dissolve ordinary table salt into water, creating a basic saline solution. Next, you'd place a piece of charcoal on one side of the container and a strip of metal, often zinc, on the other side. The two materials wouldn't touch each other directly, but both would sit inside that same salty water. Almost immediately, a quiet chemical reaction would begin. If you connected a small multimeter to the two materials, you'd likely see a tiny voltage reading appear, something in the range of less than 1 volt. It wouldn't power your phone. It wouldn't light a bright LED bulb on its own. But it would be real, measurable electrical energy, generated purely through chemistry, just like it was over 100 years ago. This is the part that makes the story so satisfying. It's not some exaggerated myth or internet legend. It's basic, well-understood electrochemistry, the same core science behind nearly every battery humans have ever built. What changes over time isn't the fundamental principle. What changes is efficiency, materials, safety, and scale. A modern lithium battery and a jar of salt water with charcoal and zinc are, at their core, doing the same basic thing, creating a difference in electrical potential between two materials and allowing electrons to flow because of it. One does it with incredible precision and power. The other does it in the crudest, simplest way imaginable. But the thread connecting them stretches back further than most people realize. Now, it's worth being honest about something important here, because this is where a lot of confusion tends to creep in online. When people say a device like this runs without electricity, what they really mean is that it doesn't rely on a wall outlet, a power grid, or a manufactured battery cell. It's not creating energy out of nothing. It's converting chemical energy into electrical energy, which is a completely different thing. This distinction matters, because real science is far more interesting than magic. The idea that ordinary materials sitting quietly in a container can create a genuine flow of electrons isn't a trick. It's a demonstration of the natural laws that govern matter and energy, laws that were being slowly uncovered and understood by curious minds throughout the 1800s, often through nothing more than patient trial and error. Thinking about this story in a bigger sense, it says something important about how progress actually happens. We often imagine scientific breakthroughs as sudden, dramatic moments, a flash of insight, a single genius working alone in a lab. But history rarely works that way. More often, progress comes from countless small experiments, many of them failures, some of them partial successes, slowly building toward a deeper understanding. The salt and charcoal battery isn't a single invention from a single person. It's a pattern, one repeated by many different people across many different places, using whatever materials they had available, slowly uncovering the basic rules of electrochemistry long before modern science had fully explained why any of it worked. And that's part of what makes this kind of history so valuable to revisit today. We live in a world absolutely saturated with advanced technology. Batteries are everywhere, hidden inside nearly everything we touch, and most people never think twice about how they actually work. But going back to something this simple, something built from salt, water, metal, and charcoal, strips away all that complexity and shows the bare, honest mechanics underneath. It's a reminder that even the most advanced modern technology often traces its roots back to something surprisingly humble. There's also something deeply human about this story. Think about the person who first tried this experiment, sitting in a dim room, maybe by candlelight, testing different combinations of materials, just to see what would happen. No guarantee of success, no certainty that any of it mattered, just curiosity, patience, and a willingness to experiment with what was available. That spirit, more than any specific material or device, is really what this story is about. It's a reminder that discovery doesn't always require expensive equipment or specialized institutions. Sometimes it just requires attention, patience, and a willingness to ask a simple question. What happens if I try this? As we bring this story to a close, it's worth stepping back and appreciating just how far this simple idea eventually traveled. What started as crude, unreliable experiments in the 1800s slowly evolved decade after decade into the sophisticated battery technology that now powers nearly every part of modern life. Cars, phones, laptops, medical devices, satellites orbiting the planet right now, all of them rely, at their core, on the same basic principle first explored by ordinary people using salt, metal, and charcoal. It's a quiet, often overlooked thread running through the entire history of technology, one that rarely gets the attention it deserves. And that's really the heart of what this channel is about. Not just telling you facts, but helping you see the hidden connections between the past and the present, the quiet, overlooked moments that ended up shaping the modern world in ways most people never stop to think about. Stories like this one remind us that history isn't just about famous names and major events. Sometimes it's about a jar of salt water sitting quietly on a workbench, holding within it the earliest whispers of a technology that would eventually change everything. So here's what I want you to do. If this story genuinely made you stop and think, even for a moment, take 10 seconds right now and drop a comment below. Tell me what surprised you most, or if you'd ever want to try building something like this yourself. I read every single comment, and honestly, some of the best video ideas on this channel have come directly from conversations happening right there in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into a forgotten piece of scientific history, do me a solid and share this video with someone who loves this kind of content, whether that's a friend, a family member, or just someone in your life who's endlessly curious about how the world actually works. Every single share helps this channel grow, and it genuinely means a lot. Make sure you're subscribed, because next time we're going to dig into another strange, overlooked piece of history hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.